Welcome to another episode of Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I'm your host and my name is Danette Mahabeer. And today is a very special episode. The topic for today's podcast and talk show is Sharon for Nashville Mayor. And so today I have the greatest pleasure of speaking with Sharon Hurt, council member here in Nashville. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me.
It is my pleasure. I look forward to this day, and I'm just happy to be a part of your campaign and supporting you with this mission that you're on.
Thank you so much. I am so excited and just so thankful to you to even give me the opportunity, and I just love the fact that this is a minority, a woman-owned that is moving and shaking and doing great things. That's what I have lived for, worked for pretty much all of my life.
Yes, and I've done my major research on your history, and there's so much that you have actually contributed to Nashville, to this city. And so we want to talk about some of the history before we move into the campaign for Mayor 2023.
Absolutely.
And that's a big deal in itself. But let's go back into, you recently retired last year fall.
Yes.
From being the CEO and president of JUMP.
Yes.
Tell the audience about the acronym JUMP, what it stands for, and some of the work that you've done.
Absolutely. JUMP is Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership, and it was a merchants association similarly to the Downtown Partnership, where the people came together and said that they wanted to have one voice.
Nice.
It was for economic development. We wanted to thrive on the historic Jefferson Street. Former council member Ludi Wallace was over the district that encompassed downtown,
right,
as well as Jefferson Street. And when they created the Downtown Partnership, he felt like the same kind of thing needed to be offered to the Jefferson Street community. And they did a pilot program back in 1996, and they did that for 3 years. And the funding was actually up in 1999, and that's when I was hired on. So I went and begged, borrowed, and almost stole in order to keep it open. And I'm so glad that it's still open now. But it was basically to preserve the rich history of that community, where you have 3 historically black colleges and universities. And I just saw so much potential. I came as a wide-eyed 18-year-old from Memphis, Tennessee, to attend Tennessee State University. And I saw that this provided me with hope and dreams that I said, oh, I can be somebody. Kind of like Sister Act, you can go somewhere and be somebody. I felt that when I came here. And once I got on the street and saw all of these black businesses and minority businesses and women-owned business, because the College Crib is one that had a lot of the paraphernalia for Greek organizations, and the person who owned it was Hortense Price Jones, and she was a female. Right. Then Universal Life was a business that my brother worked for in Memphis, and it was huge. The headquarters was in Memphis, and there was a Universal Life office here. And in that office, once Universal Life moved, Rosetta Perry created and brought in the Tennessee Tribune. So I'm just looking at all of these women that's doing these great things and making it happen, and just everything about Jefferson Street just gave me hope. And I know at that time that it was not what we wanted to be. It's not what it is today. But I said, I know we might have been knocked down, but we were not knocked out. And I wanted to make sure to bring it back. So I went out and started gathering people and gathering, because retail follows residents. Right, so if the people are not there in order to support the residents, so I started doing things to create more of a total community service for everyone. So that included affordable housing. We created a workforce development program. We did driver's license restoration. We did things that focused on building economic small businesses, growing wealth, and trying to get people certified to become a verified and certified business. And we also saw other nonprofits. So I spent a lot of time trying to help other people who wanted to start a nonprofit and didn't know what to do and where to go. So I just take the time and show them and tell them. And one is Trina Frison with Mending Hearts, and I mean, she is just doing amazing. So I feel like all of these people are kind of like my children, because I was giving them direction, and it was just my joy to see people having this opportunity and thriving. So we focused on taking care of people, the same thing that I'm focusing on as a candidate for mayor. I believe that the power is with the people, and the people are out there doing it. They're on the ground. So I learn from them, and I know the things that matter most to them, and I want to make sure that they are cared for, no matter the zip code, no matter the community, no matter, everyone in Nashville deserves a quality of life. And I started that work at Jump, and then I thought it was a natural foray for me to go into the council, because I worked with council members in order to help me continue with work I did at Jump. And two of the council people, Councilmember Jerry Maynard and Councilmember Lionel Matthews, both served on my board before they became council members. So knowing that they were able to take some of the things that they got from Jump and to put it into effect, and legislation that made me realize that in order to get those things done, you have to have the meat, the legislation behind it. So that was a natural foray for me to go from there to becoming a council member myself, because there's so much work to be done. And then me becoming mayor, and I ran from this. I have to tell you, ran from it. I'm like, I know that this is not something that, you know, I never really had aspirations to do it. But I can tell you that every time I would question and ask for signs and things of that nature, because it is a divine, it's a divine calling, I received it every time. And the last thing, I received the confirmation, affirmations coming in every way. But when I can tell you that one thing, I was listening to April Ryan's new book, Black Women Will Rule the World, and she talked about Ruby Bridges, who was the little girl that we see in the pictures that that desegregated the schools in New Orleans. You know, when the FBI, she was there, she was walking behind them for them to usher her into school. And I'm thinking about if she could do that as a 6-year-old, because she was forced to do it, and everything we do is by force of choice. And I said, she was forced to do that. I have the opportunity. And I think it's my responsibility. Now I know it's my divine responsibility to go out here and make this happen. And I look at my 13 great nieces who see the humble beginnings from which I came, but now I am in a position that I'm able to run for mayor of a major city. That tells them that they can go anywhere, do anything, and be anybody. The same thing that I felt when I stepped foot in Nashville. And that's the kind of hope and prosperity that I want to bring to everyone in Nashville.
That is deep. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I know.
That is a beautiful story, and the more that I hear is the more I believe in it.
Yes.
And I'm sure, you know, not just my audience, but everywhere that you will get that opportunity to speak for your campaign, people hearing your story is what makes them believe in your story.
Absolutely, because I really feel like my life and the life of Jefferson Street kind of parallel. Because we've had some hard times and we could have given up, but we did not. We stayed in it, because just if you have just a glimmer of hope, you just never ever give up. And I believe in Nashville. I believe this is a place for people to thrive. I believe that there's something for everyone here, and I believe that Nashville has to let everybody know. We've seen catastrophes happen all over the city. You know, from the floods to tornadoes to the bombing and all of that. But they embraced each other. They came together. They loved each other. And we need that with everything that we've gone through. I think we need love in this community. And as long as we have faith and have that hope, we know that the greatest of these is love. And I got so much love to give. And I think if we go out here and we spread that love, we will see the Nashville that we know that was meant to be.
Yes. And so let me go into a couple other things that you've done. Like you've been talking, but that's not even half of how you've contributed to Nashville, to this major city, the work you've done, and the history that you've created or helped to create. So I've read that you've been a part of changing streets' names, and tell us about that, Charlotte Avenue and Martin Luther King.
Well, I think that with Martin Luther King, that was something I could not believe that a city as large as Nashville, because it was actually one of two cities left in this country that did not have a street named after Dr. King. And I did not necessarily want it to be in the areas where most people feel like it is a neglected area and it's predominantly black area, but I wanted to be in a prominent space. And then to see the opportunity for us to have the name put on Charlotte Avenue right in front of the Capitol, where the state of Tennessee, where the governor resides, and all of the legislation takes place for this state, that the name is now Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So it was just a wonderful thing to me to be able to do that. In no other place could this have the same type of meaning, because this is the state in which Dr. King was assassinated. Now, what's really important to me is that I am from Memphis, and I was there when Dr. King was assassinated. And there was another fatality that took place during that time, and it was from a young man by the name of Larry Payne, who was 16 years old, and he just happened to be my sister's boyfriend. So when we talk about the movement and everything that went through that city, and people standing up, because that protest from the sanitation workers was the very first public protest that had come out. And to know that type of history took place, and the violence that took place as a result of it, because people had had enough. It was very important. And what I see in Nashville is that it is different, because Memphis, we learned that we had to address things, at least the black community address things showing their anger, and we used our bodies from the neck down. But I saw people in Nashville use their bodies from the neck up. So they fought, but they fought in the boardrooms, they fought in conference rooms, they fought at tables, and they were allowed to do that because of the level of intellect and the educational institutions that were here, where people were able to use that as their way of saying, listen, you've got to understand, we can go about this a different way. The silent protest that they did, the way that they walked down there, and you had college students that created this. To me, it was just, I was just in awe of that, and to know that they did that. And then we also had Rosa Parks that had already been renamed by our Senator Danette Mahabeer at the time. And since Dr. King, I was able to rename Kelly Miller Smith. And Kelly Miller Smith is a very prominent, or he was a prominent minister that was a part of the Southern Conference leadership. And he actually introduced John Lewis, the young John Lewis, to Dr. Martin Luther King. So I was very proud to also be a part of renaming of Fifth Avenue to John Lewis Way. So to have that, and I see that Nashville can embrace and celebrate all of this wonderful history that we have here in Nashville. That is a way that people can visibly see that there's great history, great legacies in this city. So that's very important to me, and I just appreciate the city. And what was really special, Danielle, is that when the mayor signed the legislation to rename the street, it was actually on the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's death.
Wow.
It was,
and you cannot make that up.
You cannot make it up. It was April 4th, 2018.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh my God. And I didn't even realize that it would happen and it would fall that way. And when I submitted it to the council and it had to go through the first, second, third readings and all of that, had no idea.
Wow.
That
Everything was just a line.
It was just a line. Yeah. So I know me being here and me doing what I'm doing is divine.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my gosh. And I read that you were also the director of street works.
Yes.
And so that dealt with a different avenue of, like here you are talking about, Black history and making that impact and honoring that.
Right.
But here you are being the director of something that helps with HIV and AIDS and all that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, and this is really, really interesting because I worked at Mahabeer Medical College for about 20 years. I started when I was a student at Tennessee State, worked for the student organizations, and actually I was typing up the old tests that they had, and I would, because I typed them up for them, when I would retype tests and I remembered some of it from others, I was like, oh, I know the answer to that. I didn't know I could have been a doctor myself, but that wasn't the plan for me, obviously. But I did, after being there working with them with the student organizations, I decided after I graduated that I would check into see if I could work. And I did, and I started working and worked there for, I guess, a total of 20 years. And I ended up being the director of admissions and records. But before I moved to that position, I worked in the School of Graduate Studies and Research. And one of the people that they brought there to give a speech regarding HIV and AIDS was Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Wow.
When he worked at NIH. And he was new infectious disease expert at that time. And my boss at the time also was a microbiologist and immunologist. So that became a little intriguing to me. But after that, I started working at Jump, and I was recruited from someone to work on the board at the Comprehensive Care Center, which started, they also were associated with Vanderbilt, and they worked on it, and Dr. Stevie Rafanti was on the board, and so I started to learn a little bit more about that. So it's just been such a long story, but a friend who was not, but he came to me and wanted to help me with the workforce development program that I had. And I did find a way to bring him in and allow him to help as a consultant. He actually was the board chair of Streetworks. And when the founder of Streetworks was retiring, they needed someone to step in to come and help. So he asked me if I would come and do it, and I told him that I would. So I ran Streetworks and Jump at the same time for a couple of years. But when I tell you that this work was so gratifying, because HIV and AIDS not only infects individuals, but it affects the entire family. Mm-hmm. We have to provide wraparound services. It may be their housing, it may be their food, transportation, all of those things, and many of them may have received or may have gotten the transmission of the virus from intravenous drug use. Mm-hmm. So knowing that people who are out there using drugs, many of them may have substance abuse, they may have, well, of course they got substance abuse, but they may have mental health issues, they may be homeless, that they are in an environment that puts them at a greater risk. So you have to meet people where they are. Mm-hmm. And what we go through, the motto is that we reduce the harm and not the person. We want every person to feel the dignity in which they should, just to have the breath of life, knowing that every day gives them a new opportunity. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. So you can change, you can do something else, you can do things better, just because where you are doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Right.
So we always want to lift them up and give them that opportunity. And that's what I do and what we do at Streetworks. And we see that, and there are so many people that have continued to carry on. And HIV now is not a death sentence. You know, people can live with HIV. They can be untransmittable and undetectable. And we want that for them. All they have to do is be on those meds and take them and practice the safe sex and safe drug use, because people are going to use drugs. And I tell them all the time, they're going to use drugs and they're going to have sex. So what we have to do is educate them. We have to educate them on how to do those things responsibly and safely in order to make sure that we don't continue to transmit the virus to others. So we're looking to end the epidemic. But right now, we have some real concerns because the state has refused to accept some federal funding from the CDC that has been used for prevention of HIV and AIDS. And I don't think they really understand, because it's not just about sex, it's about drugs too. And they don't know that many of their kids may be intravenous drug users and they not even know, because there are so many functional people that are doing so. And I'm going to give you one stat. So for the month of January, we have a needle exchange program that the state approved of and certified. We were the first in the state to be certified. That was one of the first things I was really proud of, because it came in the fall of 2017 and we were able to start in 2018, which was when we started the program and actually went active legally. So 2018 was a good year for me.
Wow.
But in January of this year, we distributed over 40,000 needles.
Wow.
But here's the best part. We received 38,000 of those needles back. So those people realize that they are saving lives by making sure that when they use the needles, that they don't just throw them away, that they just don't put them out there for anybody to pick up and use, but they're putting them in a safe place and they're bringing them back to us.
That is amazing.
And that's how we're saving lives. We distribute Narcan with it, because many of them are using the drugs, and you know, fentanyl is just going crazy all over the place. And we're also having to use 5, 6 administrations of dosages in order to bring people back, because the fentanyl is poison basically. And they're using it, but because it gets them that feeling that they're looking for in a more intense and a quicker way, that's their choice today. So it is really, really important for us to educate them. We do testing, we refer them to treatment, and we have them come and we refer people every day. We just don't have enough places for them to go in order to get the help that they need. Wow. But we're going to work at it. We're going to keep on going. We're going to keep going.
You are doing amazing
so it
work.
is very gratifying.
Yes.
Gratifying work.
Wow.
And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. I tell people, we have people from Williamson County and Sumner County, Davidson County, Hickman County, Dixon County. We have them coming from all over. But we actually have, and this is another thing that I've been really, really proud of, because we've been reaching out to the Latinx community. And we've got a couple people that I brought on to our organization, and we've been doing an outreach to them. And we actually started this outreach to them in a church. And because of the commercials and the marketing that they helped us do, Casa de Mias, the church, I think is the name of it, with Bishop Rodriguez, over on Dickerson Pike. And we've had people come all the way from Florida to get some help. And we've been able to put them in the care to make sure that they did not put themselves at risk of transmitting that virus. And we started out, I think, with maybe 1 or 2 Latinx clients, and now we have over 65.
Wow.
So I'm just so happy and seeing the progress of the work that's being done. So the state doesn't know. And I'm going to go back and meet with some of the representatives to let them know just how impactful the funding that they have been providing for us, how great it has been, and if they do decide, well, we know they decided, but if they continue to reduce the funding and deny funding like that, that it is going to not make our city and our streets safe, but it puts us at greater risk.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And so now that we've talked a little bit about your history and the impact that you have made here in Nashville, now we want to talk about your campaign for mayor.
Yes.
Right? That's a bold move. Again, you believe strongly that it's divine. And so now you did your campaign kickoff just the other day.
I did.
And over 150 attendees, and you guys were able to raise over $80,000. Like, tell us a little bit.
I'm just blown away.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm blown away because the people came in spite of the threat and the warnings of a tornado, in spite of the fact that there was a storm, in spite of the fact that it was raining. And it was amazing. It was a great event, and people came and they gave. Even those who were unable to actually physically be there, we saw them giving online.
Wow.
We saw them giving. We're still receiving checks, and the postings that we did from it, people were just really, really generous and exciting. It's a great time. It's a great time right now for Nashville, and I'm excited that I've been able to be a part of the change that needs to come. And I know that we've got a lot of development, and I appreciate the bricks and mortar, the development, and all of the things that's going on. But I know that we've got to bring things back to the people.
Right.
We've got to, the power is in the people. So I'm depending on the people. They know things before I do. They tell me before I get to council meeting. I'm learning about things before I can read legislation. And I don't know, maybe they just are so engaged, which I love. And they are telling us, and I have a knowledge on real time and what you think and what Miss Mary think and Miss Nancy that I met with this morning, or Charlie, and all of those folks that I met with this morning at the Hillsborough, Belmont, Brentwood Exchange Club. And that's one of the things that I love, is because I'm a member of the Exchange Club and I'm a member of the Rotary. And the one thing that they do, that they have created their covenants and the things that we do that is surrounding around people. You know, we first want to give them truth, is what the Rotary says, and to give them the truth. And I think people really want to trust the government.
Right.
But they've not, because they've not been given truth and they've not been given transparency. As you can see, that I can talk a mile and I have to give them the truth. But with me talking as much as I do, I have to tell them the truth. I have to be honest. I have to be, and I'm just a truth teller. And I think it makes it much easier. People don't have to worry about where I'm coming from. They don't have to worry about where I stand. They know that I've been for minority businesses. They know that I've been for women businesses. And the thing of it is, let me just say, when I talk about minority is not just black people. It's not just brown people. It's women. It's veterans. It's LGBT. It is disabled community. Anyone that's been disenfranchised and marginalized, they are part of. We got seniors. I consider them to be a minority. And I am going to fight every day to make sure that they have the opportunities. So we're 20 years behind. Mm-hmm. You know, we've had a black president, but we've not had a black mayor in Nashville. Nashville is the most diverse city in the state of Tennessee. It is time for us to have someone in the office who have lived experiences,
Right.
who understands what it is to be a minority, what it is to be in those communities that have been disenfranchised, marginalized, or someone needing to have that help in order to get them not necessarily a handout, but a hand up. And the thing of it is that all of these different populations and ethnicities and nationalities that have come to Nashville, they come here with, just like me, with that hope of having prosperity. And Nashville has the ability to fulfill that promise. And I believe that it is time for us to fulfill that promise for every person here. We are erasing the middle class and the working class people, but if nowhere else, they should be able to thrive here in the state capital of Nashville, Tennessee.
Absolutely. And now we're like ready to approach March, which is, you know, National Women History Month. And I feel like it's such a great moment and time for what you were doing. You know, it's very inspiring and very empowering that, you know, I strongly believe that history will be made. And, you know, I believe in your mission. I believe in your vision. And I'm sure everyone that's listening to this podcast and talk show and everywhere you are able to campaign throughout your 2023 race, that people who never know about your history, know about what you believe in, will now start believing in that. And, you know, that is powerful. It's very, very inspiring.
Well, thank you. That's what I need. I'm asking people, give me an opportunity. Let me come in your home or in your coffee shops or your schools, wherever it is that we can have a conversation so I can share with you what my vision is, because I don't care. I'm never ever giving up. I believe in Nashville. I believe in what we can do, what we can have here. I believe that every janitor, I believe every secretary, firefighter, police officer, everyone should have an opportunity to have a quality of life. And they can here in Nashville. I believe that we have the opportunity for balance. In Nashville, as I told you before, you know, how we come together, how the black and the white community came together in order to work out the civil rights. We look at our music industry. And we've had blacks and whites come together in the music industry and create some amazing, amazing music here. At one time, nothing was created in this country that didn't touch in Nashville at some point. It doesn't matter whether it was black, white, gospel, R&B, jazz. Nashville was the place for it to happen. And it has always been embracing of that. You look at healthcare. We have the same thing here. You've got Mahabeer Medical College, the dental school, the graduate school. We have Nashville General Hospital that's available, Matthew Walker. We've got neighborhood health. We've got just so many places, along with HCA and St. Thomas and Ascension and TriStar, all of that. You can have it, so it's enough for all of us on either side. The educational, the same thing, so many great educationals, and Nashville is one that has 4 historically black colleges and universities. And I'm so proud to say, and 2 of them have now won Grammy Awards with Fisk University and the Jubilee Singers last year, and now Tennessee State University with the Aristocratic Bands. So this is a wonderful place. In Nashville has been said, Black Enterprise would outline the top 5 places for black people to live in its magazine. And Nashville was always on the list.
Wow.
And for it to be a place where there were it was not predominantly populated by black people. But why? And I think it's because of those things that it's a great place for blacks to be educated, for them to have access to health care, for them to be able to get involved and succeed in the music industry. All of that was available to them as well as it was to any other nationality. and I think that it still is. So this is the melting pot. It's a beautiful fabric that we have here of everyone. I guess it's almost kind of like Nashville is the New York.
Right?
Really, because Jefferson Street, I tell people that it was kind of like the Harlem and Apollo back in the day, because a lot of the black people would come here on Jefferson Street. We had nightclubs, and it was just a wonderful place to be. They always asking about Jimi Hendrix, right? And they said, well, how did he get here? You know, he was from Seattle, but he was in the Army. And he was stationed at Fort Campbell. And he would come over because he heard about all of the fabulous music on Jefferson Street. And he came over here, and that's how Jimi Hendrix was associated with Jefferson Street.
Wow.
So I think that because of that, we got a long history of where we have come together and worked together, and it is time for us to be a major league city, to show people that we are embracive and we can celebrate every nationality. We can celebrate all people, and not just one specific group of individuals, but everybody can thrive here in Nashville.
Wow, I know I can speak for that.
Yes.
You know, I'm from Jamaica,
exactly.
So, you know, and I'm multi-black-owned and women-led business owner.
Right.
And so when I read that about, you know, the mission and the vision that you embrace, I'm like, wow.
Yes.
You know, and it's not just like you're for one thing. Again, you are for minorities and women-led and black-owned businesses and job opportunities and just, you know, inclusion and diversity, and there's so much that you are for.
Yes.
So it's not just tunnel-minded to one thing, but everyone that hears Sharon's story and campaign can relate to one or more aspects of what you are campaigning for, what you are advocating for.
Absolutely.
And that's very, very powerful.
Well, look, let me tell you
very, very powerful.
Thank you so very much. But when I got my master's degree from Belmont University, so I got an undergraduate degree from Tennessee State, but I have a master's degree from Belmont. And when I presented my thesis, because I did it on what now I guess was gentrification, but I felt like it would not be gentrification but redevelopment, because I think we all could come together. And I used Hope Gardens as the model because I felt like it was a model transformation from chaos to community. But in my presentation, when I did my defense, I talked about a symphony, an orchestra. You have the drums, you have the percussions, you have the horns, you have the violins, you have the string, you know, the strings, percussions, and all of those things, and it comes together and it makes this beautiful music, beautiful harmony. And to me, that is what Nashville has the ability to do, is that we make all of this beautiful music together. When we come together, we're stronger together. So we've got to unite. We've got to bring all of the pieces together and make it happen. I've even talked about it and used analogies of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls and how he was just the greatest thing and did all of these amazing things, but he never won a championship until he got all of the other players in the game. And when you put them all together, and I told him, I said, listen, Michael Jordan is downtown, but Scottie Pippen is North Nashville. Dennis Rodman is East Nashville. Steve Kerr is West Nashville. When you get them all in the game, you win 6 championships, you know? And for those that may not even be sports fans like I am, because I can talk basketball, football, baseball, but talk about a garden. When you have one prize flower, and I know I went to Cheekwood a couple of weeks ago and talked to them, and they got this beautiful display of orchids everywhere. It's just beautiful. But they also have roses, they have dogwood, tulips, and all of these things around. But if they only spent their time focusing on meticulously addressing the orchids, then the roses, the dogwoods will be neglected, and you will find some of them not surviving. You will find that they will also grow weeds and things into and come into, and you put the orchids at risk,
Right.
because they've not cared for that part. And that's part of the things that we have. When you don't take care of every community and you don't provide the resources and the tools that they need in order for them to survive and thrive, then you find some of the things that we try to eliminate, and that's the crime and violence that we have, which I think that we definitely need to address. We've got to put together a real plan on how we can address those communities and provide resources, because much of it is because of lack and not having accessibility. So I'm prepared to surround myself with the experts to tell me how best to get this done. I know and I see the vision, but I know that I can't do it all. I know that I'm limited in my knowledge, but I'm just full of dreams. I'm full of the way things can be. And I'm, you know, they say that you're an optimist. I'm not. I'm a pessimist. I'm really excited about it, you know, and I really think that it can happen.
Yes,
and that's why people want to come to Nashville. They see it too. They see that something special is happening in Nashville, and it is, and I think it should be for every person who's here, who's come, who want to come. The dreams that they see, they can be. I don't want people to ever give up on it, because there's gold at the end of the rainbow.
I love it. Oh my, I can sit here and talk to you for hours and hours. But, you know, I want to say thank you so very much for, you know, taking the time out to come on my show to be able to elaborate on these things and talk about your campaign and your history. And so before we wrap up, I want you to share with my audience where they can find you and follow you and how they can support your campaign.
Absolutely. So I have an email at info@Sharon for Nashville, and you can also go to my website at SharonForNashville.com. And you know, I don't mind giving my phone, but the thing of it is that I have to get back to you, and I may not be able to pick up at that time. But of course, if you reach out, I have a campaign team that is working, and someone will get back with you. So that's info, INFO, at Sharon, SharonForNashville, and it's SharonForNashville.com. Now let me tell you about that. I'm not saying that Sharon for mayor, because I'm not trying to be an occupant necessarily. I'm not seeking and aspiring to be mayor. What I want people to know is that I am aspiring to make Nashville as good as it gets, as good as it can be. So I am for Nashville. I am for it fulfilling that promise. I am for it providing hope and prosperity to every person that is here. All the legacy residents that's been here, I don't want them to be fearful that they will lose their homes because it's so expensive. I don't want, and I love the growth, and I appreciate that, but I think we've got to slow it down, and we've got to preserve, and we've got to put back into the people, all people, so they can thrive. Because when, you know, I think poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. So when those that are in poverty do better, then those who are in prosperous do even better. Those who are prosperous are even more prosperous. So we all do better. And I think that it's going to take us uniting and coming together and making sure that that happens. So Nashville can reach that place that we know that it was meant to be. And I really feel a connection to you. I have two son-in-laws, and they both are from Jamaica.
Oh.
One is from Otis Rios.
Okay.
And he's here in Nashville.
See?
And I have another one that's in Florida. He and my daughter live in Florida, and my grandson live in Florida. And he's from Clarendon.
I am from Clarendon. I am from the South, and I ended up in the South. Yes, so I'm from a rural part of Clarendon.
Yes, he's from Clarendon. Richards is his name, Sastry Richards. Yes. And my other son-in-law's name is Michael Frazier.
Okay.
From Jamaica.
See?
I know.
Everything is just alignment. I tell you.
It is.
You are a beautiful soul, and I believe in your mission and your vision, and I'm just very appreciative that you've taken the time to, speak with me and be a part of my audience and my show and my podcast. And I just want my audience to be aware of your mission and your vision as well.
And I love your red. It's my favorite color. It's my favorite color. I just didn't have it on today.
Right.
I went and spoke to
you. got your red lipstick, and you're little red
I went and met with the Hillsborough Brentwood Club, so I wanted to be conservative. I wanted to make sure that I stayed professional and didn't, come across too strong.
Right.
So I wanted to dress down a little bit.
Wow.
But I love that.
Thank you. And I know we'll be talking way more, and I'll be following your campaign. Guys, be sure to reach out. Follow, support, donate however you can, follow this campaign. And thank you guys so much for tuning in once again to another episode of Voice the Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast.